Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift.
It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
Hello and welcome to Jen Taylor Rerouting, where being rude is never acceptable, but sarcasm is welcome and swearing isn't always a bad option. Let's get started. Thank you so much for joining me on Jen Taylor Rerouting. My goal is that every guest becomes a friend, and I feel truly blessed to know the people that I've interviewed. If you want to know more information about me, from being a guest on this show to my virtual assistant services for podcasters, or perhaps you want to be a published author, I have coaching and ghostwriting services for that. You can find everything that you want to know on jentaylor.net. Remember to give a shout out, share, like, give me some feedback on all of my interviews. I'm happy to join in on a conversation with you. Have a great day. Today I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing Natalie Epps. Natalie, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Jen. How are you?
I'm awesome. This is great. We're 3 hours apart and it's Saturday, and I don't usually do interviews on Saturday, but I really wanted this story to get out, even though it'll come out on a Tuesday. Yeah, I just got out of the shower. And when I talked to my coach, I told her my ideal job, I don't have to wear pants. And so here we are. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in my bathrobe. So
You've reached it.
I have this is the pinnacle. You're here. So people can find you on natalieepps.com. I'll put that in the show notes. It's EPPS. Natalie spelled not weird.
Yes.
So it's just a normal spelling. And you have a pretty incredible story. But I want to start with you growing up, because you lived in Ohio all your life. My oldest daughter, who's almost 26, decided that the college of her dreams was Bowling Green.
Okay.
And
Nice.
she came from Reno, and I didn't think it was a great idea, but I encouraged it. And 2 weeks in, she called me crying, and she's like, "They have tractor pulls here."
And winter.
and worse winter than we have.
Yes.
So anyway, she lasted a semester, but that was my only experience with Ohio. So tell me about growing up in Ohio, where and what that was like, and parents and siblings and all that stuff.
Oh, sure. So yeah, born and raised pretty much in Columbus, Ohio, right around it. I am the oldest of 4 siblings. I was kind of like the built-in babysitter. I have like a tribe of teenagers and a little one. I was born 6 years before the rest of my siblings. So, my parents never paid for a babysitter probably a day in their life, because I was always the built-in one. So it wasn't like, what are you doing Friday? It was like, hey, we're going out Friday, so you're staying home with the 3 little guys. And so I have 2 brothers and a sister. They're great. And it's really fun being an older sibling. And maybe some of your kids can relate with this. It's like, you almost get to skip that like bratty older sibling, and you kind of get to be like almost like another parent, but like a cool parent where they can call you in the middle of the night. They can let you know when they need you to come get them from somewhere. So it's always a pretty cool relationship I had with them. Like I said, I just grew up in Central Ohio. Went to a couple different colleges. You said your daughter lasted a semester at Bowling Green. I started out at Otterbein, which is another private, just smaller private college in Ohio, and then went over to Ohio State. So I am, for better or worse, I bleed scarlet and gray. I love the Buckeyes and all things college football. So that might be my fatal flaw. I don't know. So I grew up there, and my parents both lived in the same house. I had a really good, really interesting upbringing with them. I guess I should say about 5 years ago, I lost my dad. So now my family unit has evolved. I'm married now. I have 2 daughters, 2 and 3. So we are in the midst of insanity right now. An amazing husband, thankfully. And so that's kind of my life here. I still work in corporate America. I have a very, very full-time job with a financial institution around here. And just recently, published a book, and probably the last 2 years have really been blogging and writing, which is what led me to meet you and some other really amazing people, and just kind of fell into that journey just because life happens. And so thankfully there's outlets where we can talk about it. So yes, that's how I've gotten to where I'm at now, sitting with you.
I think it's exciting. Social media can be so exciting because I've never met you, but I've met you online. And a lot of the relationships are like that because we're still striving for connection. And I always think, well, people in the bank or in Starbucks should just look up from their phone if they really want to connect. But sometimes we need a different type of connection with people who get us. And not always the people that are
Yes.
right around us get us the same way. And we also have a lot of resources. So I love that. So I remember 2 and 3-year-old kids. And so tell me, you had a pretty idyllic upbringing, nothing outrageous or exciting. Tell me about your meeting your husband.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I met my husband, oh gosh, I don't even know how long ago it was now. We've known each other for over a decade. We've been married for 5 years. I met him at my church. I was at Ohio State, like I was telling you. My parents did start going through just some real relational things that parents go through. And I was just having a hard time dealing with it. And just all the other things that leads to when your parents are so consumed with just their own things for all the right reasons. They're really just trying to take care of their marriage and their own well-being. Not really having that connection that I really wanted to have with my parents. So I ended up finding a church pretty close to Ohio State, and really just started attending there. It was just wonderful just to have a sense of community, and it just really helped just my heart, just helped the issues of my heart to really start to find some healing. The first Sunday I was there, however, I had sat down and I tried to sit like as far against the wall and to the back as I could get. Like, please, like nobody look at me. Like, let's just pretend I'm not here. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. And so I'm just sitting there and enjoying the service, and they're having some worship going on, and I'm standing there and I'm looking up at the stage, and there's this extremely attractive guitar player playing on the worship team. And so I'm like, I know I'm here at church, but that guy's really handsome. And after service, he was around the same age as I was. So some people had come to introduce themselves, and he came over and said, "Hi, my name's Noah." And I said, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you." So that was really all that was. I went back to my apartment. I was living in downtown in Columbus with some girlfriends, and one of my other girlfriends at the time, was like, "Okay, so how was it? Like, how was this whole church thing?" I was like, "It was really good." And so we're talking about it. She's like, "So, like, are there any attractive guys there? Because I mean, come on, like, we're in the age, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, there's this really attractive guy named Noah." Well, the story goes on, or the friendship developed. His name's actually Jonah. For whatever reason, I thought he was Noah for a while. But
That's
Jonah,
awesome.
So yeah, we met. We were friends
Awesome.
I know. I know. Like, sorry
Wrong
I was just blinded by your attractiveness. I just playing hard to get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Noah, Jonah, whatever. But it was really cool. He had just moved from Texas, so he was a transplant. I really kind of felt like a transplant because I was really kind of leaving some old things behind and coming into some new things. So we just really had this really great friendship. We did some campus ministry for a while together. And our relationship really evolved. We went on different trips together, ministry trips to France and Australia, just different traveling around that we got to do. I'm like, man, like this is someone unlike I've ever met. Like, I really could share my life with this guy. And so we dated for a while. Like I said, we got married 5 years ago. And it was really cool. I wanted to, if you wanted me to, I wanted to tell you our engagement story.
I want to hear
awesome.
it. I want to hear the engagement story.
Yeah. So it was really fun. So like I said, we knew each other for a while. We dated for a while, and it's kind of like that, like, what are you waiting for kind of thing, right? Because I'm like, I was 27 when I got married. I'm like, okay, come on, let's get on with it. We could tell we were moving that direction, and it was my birthday weekend. And I was just like fully convinced, like, this is it. Like, it's happening on my birthday. He came and picked me up. We went out to my parents' house to have dinner. We'd already been looking at wedding venues at this point in time. Cause we knew that's where we were going. So anyways, we went out, we were at my parents' house. We had dinner. We were like, let's go into downtown Granville's where we were at. Let's go get some ice cream because my birthday's in June. Let's go see the place that we're going to get married at, or I guess we didn't know then, we're getting married here, but it was somewhere we were looking at. So we went in, we had ice cream, and like the whole time I'm thinking like, this is so romantic. Like, I can't wait till he proposes. Like, on the way there, like, we stopped at Starbucks and he was like, I have to tell you, I forgot your present. I'm really sorry. And like, I was so convinced. I was like, or it's in your pocket. Like, I was completely convinced it was like, this was happening. So we get ice cream. We go out to the venue, like the sun setting. We're standing there overlooking like fields and like the sun and trees. And I'm like, this is it. This is the moment I've been waiting for. And, he's telling me how much he loves me and can't wait till we get to be married. And we're standing there and like, we see this little car, like pulling up the drive. And he's like, all right, well, I guess I should go back to your parents' house. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, I'm like waiting for you to get down on your knee and like, you want to go back to my parents' house? So like, I'm back to my parents' house. Needless to say, I did this to myself and I was completely devastated. So, we go back to my parents' house. He's like getting the hint, like the more silent I'm becoming, we get back to my parents' house. We drive back to Columbus and he's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, you didn't propose. Why didn't you propose? And he's like, oh my gosh, Natalie, are you serious? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, I have a plan. Do you believe I have a plan? And I was like, I guess I believe you have a plan. Just tell me you're planning something. So anyways, long story short, the next day I'm leaving with my dad and my little sister to go on a surprise trip for her to New York. And he's like, can I please come pick you up and get you coffee? Because he feels terrible. Like, mind you, he ended up bringing me my birthday present and it was a bridal magazine and a book on politics. So like, not only did I not get an engagement ring, I got a magazine and a book on politics for my birthday. So I'm like, I'm fit. And so he picks me up. Let me please take you to coffee. He picks me up for coffee. I'm going to drive you guys to the airport. He drives me and my dad and my sister to the airport. We think we're surprising her. She doesn't even know we're flying. She's never flown before. He drops us off. We leave. We're having like a great time in New York. We're traveling around the city, just seeing some different sites. And we were staying at a hotel that overlooked the memorial, the 9/11 memorial. At the time, it was just kind of being built. So it's kind of like a site we overlooked. It had a restaurant on top of it. And after we were out sightseeing, my dad said, well, let's go. I actually got us a reservation at this restaurant on top of the hotel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Because it was supposed to be like, it was supposed to be reserved for a film crew that night. So we're like, okay, so my sister are getting ready, and we go up to the restaurant and we like walk in and it was almost like they knew us. Like, no one even said anything to us. Like, somebody just like takes us. Like, I always tell Jonah, like, God made me stupid for you just for that day. Cause women, we're on it. We're investigators. We pick up everything. So I'm like walking past it and we're walking through the restaurant out to this like beautiful balcony overlooking the city. And it's roped off, like reserved for film, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're letting us sit out here. Like, there are little candles on all the tables. They're like, yeah, no one's here yet. You can have dinner here. So we go and sit down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I can't even believe I was this oblivious. And we're sitting there and the restaurant manager comes out to our table and he says, excuse me, I'm sorry, are you Natalie? And I said, yeah. He said, Natalie Sesser, because that was my maiden name at the time. He said, yeah. He goes, oh, this came for you. And like, I'm like, what the heck is this? So I look at it and it's from Jonah. And I'm like, why did he send me a letter here? Literally, I'm telling you, in my mind, I thought, oh my gosh, he wrote me a letter to apologize for not proposing. And I'm like, that's so sweet of him. So I'm like sitting there and I open it up and it's like, this letter, like, I love you so much. Can't wait to spend my life with you, blah, 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 blah. We have these dreams. And like, as I'm reading, like, it's dawning on me, like, this isn't an apology letter. Like, what is going on? And like at the very bottom of it, it's like talking about our dreams together. And the very bottom says, I love you with all my heart. Can't wait to spend my life with you. P.S. Dreams do really come true right here and right now. And like, I read it and my dad and my sister are like leaning over the table, just like staring at me. And I like look up at them and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, what does it say? And I'm like, I don't know what it says. What's going on? And they're like, what does it say? And I'm like staring at them, both of them, like, what is going on? And I look up at my little sister and she kind of just gives me this slant eye, like towards the glass doors. And I'm thinking, if he's not coming through those doors, I'm jumping over this balcony. I cannot handle this anymore. And like, I look over and like Jonah's there and he's like coming through the doors, and he's like, comes in, gets down on one knee and is like, I love you. Will you marry me? And I'm just like freaking out, right? Like crying, freaking out. And it was awesome, right? So we're there and like the restaurant manager comes out and he's bringing us all like champagne and we're having this little party. And he actually had somebody in the restaurant I saw later, like taking pictures of the whole thing, which is really, really cool. Cause in my mind, I always thought I'd want it alone. And my sister and my dad ended up being there just because that's what happened. And now having lost my dad these years later, it's so beautiful to have these engagement pictures with us all reacting and my dad's there in the moment. And like now every time I look at him, my heart just melts. I'm like, oh man, God knew what he's doing. This was just this beautiful moment. So it was a really cool engagement story. I love getting to tell it whenever.
Yay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're a working mom, you get
Yeah.
married. Now, it was a month before your wedding that your dad passed away. So this is where things started to kind of go a little bit sideways because you had a very tight-knit family. So this is back in 2012.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what happened with your dad?
So it really was a surprise, and it was a surprise and it wasn't a surprise. It's hard. People sometimes expect that if someone's dying, that somehow you take it better, which is just a misconception. My dad had been losing a lot of weight. He looked really skinny. He always liked to run, but he just looked really frail. And he's a really like maniac of a businessman, always working all the time. And he would fluctuate, right? He'd get really skinny, then he'd look normal. And I wasn't living at home. I didn't see him all the time. And he was very hard to get a hold of. He's a little elusive like that. And I remember being home one morning in Granville and he was in the kitchen, like just getting some food or something. And I looked at him and I was like, Dad, you are so skinny. What is going on with you? Like he was like skin and bones. And he just kind of looked at me and was like, just like carried on like the conversation. And that was kind of like my first hint, like something's not right here. Fast forward just a couple of weekends and my dad and I were driving out to a track meet for my sister. And I was telling my dad about a service I'd been in at church and a pastor had been talking about praying for people and them getting healed. And he was more interested than he normally is. Like we talk about everything. My family talks about everything. We have a very broad spectrum of beliefs and experiences, and we share it all, right? Like we're family. And he just seemed even more interested. And I just like felt like in my gut, like something's going on here. And we got to the meet and my mom was already there because my mom and dad weren't really talking at that point. A lot had unraveled at that point. They didn't have a good marriage, living together, but not really married. You know what I mean? I sat down with my mom and I said, "What's wrong with Dad?" And he was down watching my sister run, and she looked at me and she said, "He has cancer." And I like it's kind of like everything's like stands still, right? Like we've heard people say cancer so many times in our lives, but then when somebody says it to you about your dad, the world just kind of stops. And I was like, okay, like our dad, like healthy runner, did all the things, And he said, yeah, he has esophageal cancer, and he hasn't told anybody. He didn't tell my mom. He didn't tell his mom. He didn't tell his siblings. He didn't tell my siblings. He was keeping it a secret. He thought that he was going to beat it, and he didn't need to tell anybody. Didn't need anybody's help. But he was sick. And so through just a string of events, I told him that same day, hey, I know what's going on with you. You need to tell the kids. You need to tell your mom. You need to tell your siblings. It wasn't me like shaking my finger at him, but just like, Dad, we love you. We need to surround you. And through some events he did. He told my entire family and they knew. And that was in May. I got engaged the next month in June. Fast forward up to March of 2012. We were getting married in April. He just become really, really sick. And my mom called me one day and said, hey, your dad is going into he's going to the emergency room because he's having trouble breathing. He called me from work, and I told him he should just go to the emergency room. And I just come home from work. Joe and I are about to go meet our wedding photographer. And she was like, can you please go and be with him? Because their relationship was very strained at this point. She just didn't feel comfortable even being there in that moment. And I said, yeah, of course. So got in the car, canceled our appointment, drove to the hospital. Just believing on the way there, like, this is going to be okay. Like, my dad is going to be okay. I knew he was sick, but never in my wildest dreams did I think, the next 24 hours would hold what they would hold. So I got there, went into the room, saw him. I didn't leave his side, right? So my grandma came, some of my uncles, just different people, my family showed up, and just spending time with him. And they just said he's really weak. He needs some blood transfusion. So they're just treating him in the emergency room. But by the end of that night, they said, hey, we need to admit him. So he gets admitted. My grandma's in the room with him. I'm in the room. My mom, my siblings, Jonah, my brother-in-law came. Like I said, my family's just grown, and we all operate together in this really beautiful way. But my brother-in-law's there. And we're just around my dad. And still at this moment, I think he's sick. I know he's battling cancer. His body's just weak. And a doctor came in that did not have the best bedside manner. If you're listening and you want to be a doctor or nurse, get some good bedside manner. You're sickness, other people around you are not. But he came in, and he's saying, okay, Mr. Sesser, this is what's going on. But at the end of it, he says, but I do have to tell you, we're going to make you comfortable, but this is it. And like, it was just like the wind got sucked out of the room. And we're all like looking like, what do you mean it? Like, I don't understand. And, he left the room, and it was slowly like sinking in that, like, he meant it, like, we're going to make you comfortable, but you're dying. My dad's 47. He was not, my parents we had a very young family. And, so he left the room, and of course we're all just kind of stunned by this, except for my dad. He's sitting there, with a smile on his face, very peaceful. And he's looking at us, and, say, well, Dad, can we pray? We just gathered around and we just prayed for him. We're praying for my dad. And, it was interesting because, like I said, my siblings are a lot younger than I am. Right. So my youngest brother's still in high school. My sister just graduated, and, my other brother's not much older than that. And, it was crazy because my dad probably had the most peace of anybody in that room, sitting there in the bed. And, so we prayed for him, and, hugged on him and loved him. And, and it was getting late, and he said, okay, we're going to go, we'll be back in the morning. I went over to his bedside, and, just gave him a kiss. And, he looked at me and he said, Natalie, I'm going to walk you down the aisle. Phew. And I just looked at him and I said, of course you are. Of course you are. And that was it. And we left the room, and Joan and I went to his car and got in it. And obviously very emotional time and night. Just believing that we're going to pull through this somehow. So fast forward to the next morning, we get to the hospital. My dad's having a procedure to have fluid removed from around his heart, just from the chemo, just ravaging his body. They bring him back to the room, and they just say, we can't get him stabilized. We need to move him to the ICU. So he moves to the ICU. So we're locked down on guests. There's probably like 40 people in the waiting room at this point downstairs, just waiting to hear what's going to happen with my dad. And they go into non-visitation hours. So we're just down there for hours, just talking and praying and sharing stories, and just, really believing for the best. And my mom gets a call that she needs to come up. The doctor's ready to talk to her about what's going on. My dad's fully sedated at this point. So we're down there, and just a couple minutes later, I get a call from my mom. So I pick up the phone. Everybody's just kind of looking at me, and she just says, bring your siblings up here now. I said, okay. So I get off the phone and grab my siblings. I say, hey guys, we got to go up there. So they're like, everybody's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. She just told me to bring up the kids. So we get in the elevator. I remember we're all in the elevator, and we just like grabbed hands and looked at each other. And we're like, whatever this is, guys, we are going to get through it. And, all just scared, right? Like, we're saying things that we hope we mean, right? we get off the elevator, we're met by the doctor and my mom. And they just say, come with us. It's happening now. And we go inside this little ICU room with a curtain around it. And there's my dad. And when I saw him, I'll tell you, I thought he was already gone. It's just like a shell of a person if you've ever seen anybody pass away. And they said, no, he's still here. But he's going now. His body's just quitting. And so so I remember two of my siblings pretty much melted down at that point. My sister overwhelmed, understandably, with emotion. So I grab a hold of her and just say, listen, he can still hear us. Let's say bye. And just gathered around his bed and we just put our hands on him, and it was really difficult, very hard. I don't even know if we all said something, but basically, we love you, Dad. We're going to be okay. We're going to be sad, but we're going to be okay. It's okay to go. And and so just in that moment, the doctor came in after that and said, guys, he's gone. And it was hard, so all the things you can imagine of just a grieving family. And just feeling like, being the oldest, being the one that, had this walk of faith, being the one saying, come on, guys, like, let's believe Dad's going to get better. I felt like everything was sucked out of me in that moment. This thing I was just believing for, just kind of taken away from me,
And you're
just really
the oldest too. So
yeah,
you are kind of, like you said, the second parent. So I know I'm the
yeah,
oldest of two, and
yeah,
you take you shoulder everybody else's suffering,
yeah,
because that's kind of your job as the oldest. And so I can
totally.
imagine. I mean, you need to do your own grieving too. And
Right.
your wedding's a month later.
Yeah. So our wedding's a month later, and and so that month was hard, and it was, but it was good, right? I remember going home that night and getting ready just to you know, be praying for my siblings and up all night, and I just really just really felt just the peace of the Lord say, no, it's okay, go to sleep, and I really just a peace settled over me for that month. It was a hard month. Thank God I had Jonah. He took over all the wedding planning, all the last minute things that had to be done. He did them all because I really couldn't function. I was doing good just to be doing right.
Yeah.
So he's handling all the last minute arrangements, and my wedding gets there, and I asked my mom, obviously, in the days following, will you walk me down the aisle? And of course she's like, yeah, of course I'm going to walk you down the aisle. And my oldest little brother said, I want to help too. Can I help too? And I said, yeah, of course you can. So they both walked me down the aisle, and it was it really was an amazing day. Some people do like tables and empty chairs and candles and things like that for people who've passed away, and those are all really beautiful things. But the absence of my dad was so fresh that we didn't really need a table or a candle or a chair. We needed to make it through the day. And we did. And it really was beautiful. I was really able to enjoy the day. My family was really able to enjoy the day in a way that I wasn't really sure we would be able to. But it was just amazing, the peace I had. And I remember the one moment where I almost fell apart, but I didn't. Just right before all the bridesmaids had left the room, my planner came in, or the girl who's organizing it, and said, okay, girls, time to go, and they're all going out of the room. And I'm thinking, yeah, they're going to go. I'll go in a minute. And she's like, no, Natalie, you too. And she looks at me, and all the girls are in the hallway, and my mom's standing in the door. And I'm just standing there, and immediately I'm frozen. Oh, I'm going to do this, and he's not going to be here. And I just remember locking eyes with my mom, and she just looked at me and said, it's okay. It's okay. And, I just took a deep breath in that moment and left the room. But it was a beautiful wedding. And my pastor, who I was very, very close with, he did my father-daughter dance for me. I mean, I'd known him since I was 6, it was like a second father. He did the father-daughter dance with me. And it really ended up being a really beautiful beautiful ceremony in a way that you just, it's surprising. It's just amazing what's possible. So yeah, that's kind of that story.
And then fast forwarding 2 years from your wedding and your dad's death, your first daughter was born 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love that you said, like, it's such cool redemption, and it is. I mean, we all know that there's a surety that every one of us is going to pass away.
Yeah.
And still, though, I mean, when I lost my adopted dad, it was my selfishness to want to keep him here. He was very sick,
Yeah.
but we don't want them to go. We want them here
No,
with us. Even if you
absolutely.
have faith in where they're going, you still want to keep them here. But you're right about your daughter being born. And, how nice that their paths crossed.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
A really cool way. Yeah. So she was born March 3rd and he passed March 7th. So it was the same week a couple years later that he passed that she was born. And it was just such a good thing for me and my family to look at and say, you know what, like there's just such redemption even in death, and her birth was just such a beautiful thing to have during that time to celebrate. So yeah.
So now you're recovering from your dad and you're recovering from having a baby, even though I love that the birth was great and the memories, and having it on your dad's anniversary and all that. But tell me about what happened after that, because this is the next thing I really want to dive into. I've seen your pictures. I mean, we all look at someone else's story, right? You've gone through something I haven't gone through, and I think, wow, how did you get through that? And I can't imagine. So tell me what happens. You're a month postpartum. So anyone who's had a baby remembers a month postpartum. What brought you into the doctor?
Yeah. So, and it was a buildup. So I was a month postpartum after my second daughter, but you have to know,
sorry,
yeah,
a year later.
My second daughter was born, 18 months after my first one. So
Right, okay.
barely, I was not pregnant for like 9 months and then I was pregnant again. And so I was having just some really strange symptoms. But when you're pregnant, they tell you everything's normal, right? Like when you're going numb, like
It is.
it really is. And it's crazy.
Have you seen the list of possible side effects? Like they're everything.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, weird hair, it's normal.
Yeah.
Numbness, it's normal. Like I can't see, it's normal. Like,
Normal.
just don't worry about it.
It's on the side effect. It's in small print. Okay, but all kidding aside, you're having some odd stuff happen.
Yeah, I'm just getting really, really dizzy, and things like that happened when I got pregnant with my daughter. So it wasn't like really that abnormal, but I was really dizzy, and I started to go numb in different places, and my tongue was going numb. And the doctor said, you're really close to delivering, because this was right before she was born. Let's see if it doesn't go away. But then before my second daughter was born, my symptoms to that point had not gone away. But then part of my face started to go numb. And once part of my face started to go numb, I was like, okay, I've got to figure this out. So yeah, I was a month postpartum, and I told myself, my symptoms don't go away. After she's born, I'm going in, I'm going to get an MRI. So a month later, I'm still nursing. I get called in to have an MRI. I go and have an MRI, and I'm thinking, okay, well, we'll just, figure out whatever's going on. We'll be able to deal with it. And that was a Thursday. So then on the Friday morning, maybe Friday mid-afternoon or mid-morning, I called my doctor's office, say, did my doctor see it? Can you tell me anything? And they said, well, your doctor's out of the office. She's out sick. So as soon as she gets back in, though, she'll read it and call you. So I said, okay. So I kid you not, like 20 minutes later, I get another call, and it's an unavailable number, and I pick it up, and it's my doctor. And I'm like, it's never good when your doctor calls off duty and sick. So to give you your results of your MRI. So my heart kind of sank a little bit. And so I just picked it up, and she said, okay, let me just start off by telling you what this is not.
Okay.
It's not. Yeah. Right.
Okay. That's not necessarily good, but okay.
Right. Okay. I'm like, okay. She said, okay, well, it's not MS, which is what they were originally testing for. They thought dizziness, numbness. They thought she was really thinking maybe MS symptoms. It's not MS. And I thought, oh, okay, that's good. And it's not cancer. And I'm like, okay, I didn't even know that was on the table. So, okay, I'm glad it's off. But she said that you do have a tumor. You have a tumor in your head, and it's about the size of a ping pong ball. It's called an acoustic neuroma. It's wrapped around your facial nerve, your balance nerve, and your hearing nerve. And you're going to have to get it removed. And I said, okay. And she probably told me the worst possible thing you could do, which is go, you can go look it up.
Oh, no, you
Yeah.
are banned from WebMD.
Oh, yes.
No,
I
you
am
cannot.
now.
You're not allowed. Yeah. I tell everyone that. Ban yourself from WebMD.
Yes. You're always dying. You're
Oh my
always
God.
dying.
Yeah. Well, I either have PMS or cancer, or I mean,
or you're pregnant.
yeah, actually my daughter, every time she looks it up, I'm pregnant or I have cancer. One or the
Yeah.
other. It's interesting.
One of the two.
Those two go hand in hand. Okay.
There's no middle ground.
No middle ground. None.
So that happens, and obviously my husband and I are very taken back by it. Thankfully, she just referred me right away to an ENT that was able to see the very next week, which was a miracle. If you've ever had to go to a specialist, they take forever. I got right in. He looked at the MRI, said, yeah, some people can treat this with radiation. We would be radiating too big of a spot. Like, we have to take this out. It's pressing into your brainstem now. So if you don't take it out now, it's going to end up being an emergency situation. So obviously he referred me also to a neurosurgeon. He said, let's see the neurosurgeon, get in a second opinion. So I did. It was the same opinion. So I said, basically we're like, okay. So 30 months later, I had a date set 30 days later to get it removed. So that was in September. I got the MRI. October, I saw the doctor, and so I had an appointment for November 30th. Was to get my tumor removed. And they had gone over
2013.
Yeah. This is 2015 because I'd had
15.
my daughter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right.
Because I had my daughter. Isla was in 2014. I had Maylee September of 2015.
Okay.
And so October I had the MRI, and then I had MRI in October, and I had a surgery date for November 30th. So this was all just like back to back to back. So so they, we went over the possible side effects, and when you've never had a surgery, I did have 2 C-sections, but when you've never had a surgery, you're not really like you just can't even believe you're about to have brain surgery, let alone side effects. You know what I mean? Like, you're not really, you're concerned about it, but you're really just thinking like, oh my, like, I'm going to have brain surgery. Like, so whenever the side effects, and and I heard them, and they did tell them all to me, and I just was like, okay, let's just get this thing out and move on. I really just wanted to move on. So it's supposed to be an 8-hour surgery. I obviously get put to sleep. I wake up. As I'm waking up, I'm like, I see like a clock really blurry in front of me, and as it's coming into focus, sorry, my surgery started at 7 in the morning. And it's coming into focus, and it says 9:30. And so I'm like, oh, either something didn't take, or this lasted a lot longer than they thought. So it ended up being, or maybe it wasn't 9:30. I don't know. All I know is that I woke up in the ICU, and I turned into a 14-hour surgery. So 9:30 can't be right, but
Wow.
It turned into a 14-hour surgery because the tumor was just attached to so much. They had to go really slow to pull it all off, everything, all my nerves and my brainstem. They did tell me that I wouldn't be able to hear out of my right ear anymore because I would have to cut through my hearing nerve. And I do not have any hearing in my right ear as of today. And they had to cut through my balance nerve. So all my balance was gone on the right side of my body. The one effect that they told me that they were doing everything to avoid was facial paralysis. And I'm not really sure when it was when I woke up, because I was kind of panicked. Jonah was right there looking at me and said, you had a 14-hour surgery. It's okay. You're in ICU. I was intubated. So like, there's just like a lot going on. I was kind of freaking
Yeah.
out. But once that came out, I don't remember exactly when it was that I figured it out, but I had experienced complete facial paralysis on my right side. I couldn't close my eye. I couldn't swallow. I couldn't talk above a whisper. My vocal cords were paralyzed on that side too. Um, and yeah, and so there I was, couldn't hear, no balance, and completely paralyzed on the right side of my face.
And even though they tell you like this is possible, but we're going to try to avoid it, it's not like there was a plan B. You had
Yeah,
to have the surgery anyway. So, I mean, what stinks about that is that it doesn't matter what the list was of potential
yeah,
side effects. There was absolutely no choice. This was the better plan,
yeah.
the
I
only
mean,
plan. So,
yeah, yeah, it had to come out. Once it's pressing into your brainstem, there's really no other option. So yeah, and that was the thing. It was like they're gonna, there are chances for things to happen, but it's that, or we're gonna have to, in an emergency situation, rip it out of your head. So
yeah. So,
that's what I
yeah.
was faced
Okay. Yeah.
with.
Pick that plan.
Yeah, let's do the one I can
Still,
actually plan for.
for the surgery, you kind of had the worst case scenario outcome
Yeah.
of
Yes.
side
Yes.
effects. And so it didn't affect the right side of your body. It was strictly in your face. Not that that's a good thing, but I just want to
Mhm.
clarify, correct?
Yes, just my
Okay.
face was paralyzed. Yep.
Okay. Now I've seen your pictures and you're not even 2.5 years out. You're just barely 2 years out. So that, because I
Yeah.
didn't have an entire timeline, I am so thankful that you were willing to put the pictures on, because I know you've talked about, and even in your book, which I've read over half of, um, you talk about that a lot. I mean, the way we look at ourselves is not the way other people look at us. And there was a point in the book that you said your husband made a point. Well, instead of trying to hide behind it, why not it kind of like get in front of it? Why not be
Yeah.
proud of where you're at? And your progression is amazing. But you had to
Thank
show
you.
the worst part of it to show the best part of it, you
Oh,
know? And
yeah.
geez, it's amazing, Natalie. So how, when you're faced with that paralysis, how do you get it back? How did that happen?
Yeah, so that's the rough part, they don't give a prognosis. So they say it might come back and it might never come back, and they can't tell you. And they don't want you to do anything for like a year. Doctors don't want you to do anything for a year. They want you just to allow your body to heal itself over time, which is like a death sentence for people. Like, like it's your face. Um, I can't even look at myself in the mirror, and I can't do anything about it. That's the thing, right? Like we always want to do something about something. And
Right.
they're literally telling me, you can't. You just have to wait it out at least for a year. And so it was very hard. Um, I had to wait. I had to be so patient with myself, with my body, with my emotions, being, you're a wife, right? Like you want to be attractive to your husband. I couldn't close my eyes. So at night I had to tape it closed and wear like what looks like a pirate patch, basically, so just going morning after morning, sitting up, no movement, having to like untape my face, like just all the thoughts you could think, right? Like my husband should just leave me. Like he didn't sign up for this. Like my daughter's going to be so ashamed of me. Like I look like Quasimodo. That's what I felt like. And they, I'm going to be a disappointment. I'm a disappointment. And so really for a year, I'm telling you, the body was one thing, but it was my mind I really had to contend with for a year. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's where the battle raged for sure.
And I think that's pretty normal. But you're right. I mean, it's not like you can cover it up with a t-shirt or,
Yeah, yeah. And I
you're
told my
like,
husband that. Yeah, I
it's
said,
your face.
yeah. And I told my husband the other day, I said, some people get the chance or the opportunity or whatever you want to call it, may not the opportunity, but they get the advantage of hiding their insecurities. You can put a t-shirt on, put a sweatshirt on, like whatever it is. I can't. I literally can't. It's right on the front of my face.
I love the picture of you in the Ariel t-shirt for Isla's third birthday. And you said, I've learned how to
Yes.
position the camera to make my eyelid disappear so it didn't look like it was.
Yes.
And I'm like, but that's who we are. And I mean, it, it's, I totally relate to that. I think most of us would feel the same way. Although,
Yeah.
if it were your husband that it happened to, you wouldn't give it a second thought.
Not at all.
You wouldn't
And
even
that's what he would
care.
say.
I
Yeah.
know.
He's like, if this were me, what would you do? I'm like,
Nothing.
I wouldn't care. And he's like, I don't care either. I just want you well. So and no movement for 8 months solid. And then when I did get movement, I watch the videos now and like, I can't even see the movement, but I knew it was there. I did some electro acupuncture, which I would recommend if you want to do that. I kind of wish I would have done that earlier in the process. Do acupuncture in my face, and they would attach it to like a little, like almost like a little car battery. I did that for a little while. I did some electrostimulation therapy at like an outpatient center, where they attached like like pads to my face, and like they would send waves through them just to keep the
So you were jump
nerves
started.
agitated. Yeah. Oh yeah. Twice a week. Twice a week.
I mean, if you're going to do it, you have to have fun with that.
You got to go all the way.
I'm going to go get jump started now.
I did post a picture one day of me with the pads on my face, and yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, if you can't laugh, you're going to cry and you're going to die.
And I know for a while
yeah.
you didn't laugh, and it was really,
No.
really difficult because it is the battle in your mind. Nobody else cares. I think you're brave and courageous and beautiful. So,
Thank you.
That's how I see you, because I've read your journey and I think, wow, how amazing and how far you've come. But you're living in it in a different way. And I haven't lived with no facial movement for 8 months and taping my eyes shut and wanting to feel beautiful for my husband.
Yeah.
So through this though, I know one of your jumpstart partners you got really close to. One of the people that was doing the electro,
Yes.
so there's beautiful things in the process, and that's what your book is about. Your book is about kind of your struggle, but the beautiful thing that came from the struggle. And
Absolutely.
whether you believe in God and you have a strong faith or not, it's still about that inner fire, right? That's what
Absolutely.
your faith is that inner fire. And so tell me about that. And then you started your blog. So how did all that? I know your husband was totally your hero and took over and jumped in, and that relationship is very strong.
Yes.
But what did you do for you?
Yeah. So it's a good question. Like you were saying, for a long part of it was just really like just very hard and just very moment by moment. And I remember coming downstairs one morning, you know, in the kitchen with my husband, just crying, did lots of crying, which is totally fair. I only cry out of one side of my face. My right side can't tear, which is extremely frustrating if you ever want to have a really good cry. But my makeup always stays perfectly on one side of my face. So.
I mean, that's the benefit. See the struggle and the benefit.
There's that. Yeah. So I'm crying, and he's just being great just to hold me and try to be as supportive as he possibly can. And, and he walked away, and I just was in a moment of frustration, was like, what the heck am I supposed to do? And I really just felt just this internal voice that just said, write. And I've always enjoyed writing, it's something that it's therapeutic for me. I like doing it. So I did, because like I wasn't really seeing anybody. I didn't really want to be seen by anybody. It was a very, very weird, just bad place. And so I thought, I can write. No one has to see me to write. And so I just started detailing my journey, my doctor's appointments. We probably won't go into all of it, but I ended up having 4 different surgeries for the process, just the rise and the fall of just walking through this journey of my head healing, infections going away, my body reacting to materials they put in me. And so it really just became this outlet where I could just write what I was feeling, what I was thinking, the appointments I was having, what was or wasn't happening. And at first they were just like Facebook posts, I just like would do a Facebook post and just to let people know. I just like kind of assume the position of as honest as I can be is the only person that I can be. Because if I say something flowery, on social media, and then you come to my house, you're gonna know, you're gonna know that I kind of lying to you. So it was just to get the honesty out of it. It was a real transitional time for us with a lot of things in our life, and so I just kind of had to live in the moment I was in, and just started writing and posting, and then eventually put it onto a blog, um, and it was really awesome, because people really took to it. The people that wanted to know how I was doing, and it was great because it also became a resource where other people, even though I was still very much in the midst of it, other people could reach out and say, "Hey, I'm dealing with something really similar," or "I'm just dealing with something hard, not even similar." And it was a nice way to be able to kind of like extend my arm, and say, "Well, I don't know where I'm going, but come along with me. We're gonna do this thing." But yeah, so the blog, and which eventually led to me writing my book.
So I do want to go back and touch on, so from like November of 2015 till the beginning of 2017. So
Yeah.
not like just over a year, you had 3 more surgeries, correct? Is
Yep.
that
Yeah.
so? Why? What were the
Yeah.
surgeries for?
So obviously the original was to remove the tumor. That was in November. January, my incision opened up and I was leaking spinal fluid
Oh
out of
my
my
gosh.
incision. Spinal fluids are the devil. They are the absolute worst. They are almost impossible for doctors to figure out how to stop. And I mean, if a doctor heard that, they'd probably say like she's lying. That's not true. But they can be tricky. They can be very tricky. Um, and so I got meningitis as a result. I was sick and in the hospital. They eventually decided we're going to go in, we're going to patch her up. So they did, but they put and they patched me with just like some mesh and some different different elements. And went home, was healing, best I could up through the next fall. So I'd gone back to work, um, and that it was in just through the next fall. I realized I was getting like almost like a pimple, and it was really weird, and it like would pop, but then it would like grow back, which I know is really disgusting, but it would just like keep growing back. And so I went to my ENT because I was like, hey, this is weird. Looking at it, um, week by week, right? Because it wasn't going away. It's like, let's just keep seeing you. Let me just keep looking at this. Few weeks went by, and they realized I was having an allergic reaction to the elements that were in my head. And the only way out of it was another surgery to take it all out. So that was November of 2016. And I really thought that would be it. I thought 3 surgeries, certainly 3 surgeries is enough. And so I went in and had that surgery, came home, healed for a couple of weeks. And then a couple of weeks later, my incision started weeping again. It wasn't
Again.
like the clear fluid. Yeah. But it was like infection. And so right back to the doctor we went. I mean, as you can imagine, I'm like pretty worn out, right? Like my face isn't moving, my head won't close. Like I was, it was it was a rough place. Um,
And you have like a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old.
oh yeah, yeah,
I mean, let's
we're
not forget that little
yeah,
side note.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, and you're going back to work all the time.
yeah.
So
I'm trying. I'm trying, man. I'm trying. And thankfully for my job, man, they would let me work from home. They would like they were just really, really flexible. So just thankfully, oh my gosh, they were really understanding. But yeah, so they tried to treat the infection. I ended up with a PICC line in my arm the night before Thanksgiving of 2016, which was a terrible experience for me. Um, Tried to treat it with IV antibiotics, and it dried up for a little bit, but then as soon as they took the PICC line out, it started again. So finally, my doctor saw me in December and was like, "You know what? I'm referring you to a different kind of surgeon." He was a very, very sweet man. It was just like, "We need to get you well, and like what I'm doing is not getting you well."
right.
Um, Thankfully, I'm
Good
so
for
glad that he
him.
did.
Good for
Yeah,
him. I mean,
yeah,
geez. Yeah,
yeah,
we're all human. Good.
yeah,
So
yeah. So he referred me to a really great, another really great surgeon who took one look at me and was like, listen, the infection isn't going away. They can pump you with all the antibiotics in the world, but you're not getting blood flow. I wasn't like, my veins were just too small. I wasn't getting blood flow to the incision area to really allow it to heal. So he said, look, I'm going to shave a lot of your hair off, but I'm going to fix you. And I'm like thinking, man, you better fix me if you're shaving my hair. Like, it's funny, like after all of that, right? Like after my face not moving and all the things, I'm like, my hair too? Like, come on. Like, leave me with some kind of dignity. So I just told him, if you can fix me, then fix me. And he did. They shaved a lot of my head because he like pulled a muscle down and veins. I mean, the things medicine can do is just amazing. Did it all. I stayed in the hospital another 5 days, and I came home last January, and yes, have been healing ever since. I've had no issues with my head, thank the Lord. And I'm really just starting to really get myself back. I dealt with a lot of dizziness from having an infection for so long, and just like brain injury. It's not all just paralysis. Yeah, dizziness and fatigue and just a lot of different things. Your body really takes a very, very long time to heal from something like this. And I'm still in the middle of being patient with it, doing some different physical therapies. Your balance is gone. Like there's a lot of compensation that has to happen. But as far as my head, that was it. So
Okay,
forever and
so
ever.
you're yay. So 4 surgeries in like just over a year, but you're a year out. And
Yeah.
so in the meantime, you're writing. The book came out in December,
Mhm.
and that was kind of a compilation of journal writing, sort of. That's kind of how it
Yeah.
started, right?
Yeah.
It's a little more than that. I don't want to minimize it by saying that, but I know it started with journaling the stuff that was hard, and
Mhm.
then kind of the successes in the midst of the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and the people that got you through and that you met, and then the blog. Tell me about that, because it shares your journey, but what else are you sharing on there? Because there's pictures. I haven't gotten a chance to read everything on
Oh,
it, but I
sure.
skimmed through all of it. There's pictures of other people. So are you telling their story?
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole premise of the book, like you said, it was just really just an expression of like that time that I walked through, and I'm still am walking through it, where, just realizing that like, I have a problem with seeing myself as beautiful. And just this journey that, like you said, I know you've got a really vast, type of audience, but for me, it was really the Lord showing me that, it's the moments of your life that make you beautiful, and not the reflection in the mirror. And the process and the journey of me learning that. And so I started detailing, and through this book, just those different encounters and moments that I would have of being led through that process of finding beauty. Um, and so I was writing that book, and I was thinking, like, what is like, I want to do more, like, uh, one of the things when you feel like you lose your beauty is that you very quickly realize how beautiful the people around you are.
Hmm.
And, I know we struggle with that anyways, like, oh, everybody else is so pretty. But you really just realize the gold. You just see it in people a lot more easy because like you've kind of discarded your own beauty in a way. You're like, well, whatever, but you really see it around you. And so in writing this book, I had the idea that I wanted to get other women to share their stories. And so it was called 30 Days to Beautifully You. So it was like the 30 days leading up to my book, Beautifully You, coming out. And so these were different women that I knew. Some of them I knew personally, and some of them I didn't. They were just stories that I followed that had these amazing stories that I knew people needed to hear. Like, people needed to hear so they could grab onto. And so I asked all these ladies, to share these stories with me and allow me to share them, with people. And it was awesome, man. Like, I'm telling you, like, I had people just come out of the woodworks each time I'd post one of these stories, that would contact me, call me, email me, message me, see me face to face, and just say, that person was me. That story was me. And it was just this very beautiful thing of like, see, like, what the darkest of time, what the beautiful thing that it can produce, and bringing somebody else into that experience to say, and if you're going through it, guess what? There's beauty in it for you too. And it was really powerful. I loved it. I'm thinking about doing another one sometime this year.
Yeah, I loved it. I love it too, even though I didn't get a chance to read everything.
Yeah.
Um, It's pretty astounding. And I think that's part of my podcast. Okay, so you tell your story, which is different than my story, different than someone else's story. But then the people that hear it don't have to feel so alone.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
empowering to know that, okay, you as a woman got through this. Well, I can get through this then. And I can
Yes.
use those same skills. And that's why you're doing the same thing basically with your blog. You're interviewing people who are empowering and who have gone
Yes.
through a lot, so that we all don't feel alone, because we really have this desperate desire to connect.
Yes. Yes. That's
So
it.
I love it. You should do another one. I mean, because it feels nice to not feel alone and ugly in your struggle,
That's
whatever
so
it is.
it. Yeah.
So
And
I
I look,
love,
yeah.
I love your website, natalieepps.com, to look it up. And I'm going to put the link. I mean, I'm so proud of you for posting pictures that you didn't want to post. That's hard for us to do. We'll take 50 selfies to get the one that looks the best.
Right.
All of us do it. I'm like, ooh, that angle was bad,
Yeah.
and you posted the angles that were bad. And that's a really
Yeah.
hard thing to do. And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And there's a time where I really didn't want to, and kind of just that feeling of, you know what, I kind of need to. And I'm glad for me that I did, because there's lots of moments still, because there are parts of my face that really are not healed yet. And, you know, and there are days where I'll just sit, even this morning, I just sat and scrolled through them, like, remind yourself, you know, like, you have come from somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we forget that. It's like, if I haven't seen you in a couple of years and I look at your kids and I'm like, holy cow, what happened to your kids? Well, you see them every day. So you don't, every time you run into
Yeah.
somebody you haven't seen in a long time, you're always overwhelmed at whatever the changes are. But we don't tend to look at those in ourselves, because you're
That's so good.
with yourself every single day. So it's
Yeah.
good that you've documented that. Natalie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. And it just really, it's awesome to get to share this with you and whoever else is listening, because it is really therapeutic to get to share your story. And you even brought things up in me that I hadn't talked about in a long time. So just thank you for giving
Good.
this chance to other women.
Well, then I did a good job.
You did.
So did you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening in to Jen Taylor Rerouting. Like, share, and of course, comment. I welcome input with attitude. Get a copy of my book on Amazon, Hello, My Name is Warrior Princess, or check out my website, jentaylor.net. And if you still want more, sign up for one of my coaching packages.